So the Dunmire Empire is starting to crumble apart, and you know what they say about a cornered animal. Jeremias has nothing to lose and he's going to go all out and try to take Dwight down. Having said that, Dwight played an excellent hand this episode. He managed to use the resources at his disposal to turn the AG and in doing so, also throw Jeremiah behind bars. He's also got Thresher in the pocket too, and his political sway is only growing with every episode. However, the real sticking point here is the situation with Quiet Ray. He's now plotting to take out Manfredi, and when he does, that's not going to be a pretty sight. The subplot involving Tyson and Goody is perhaps the one part of this episode that feels a bit of a waste of time. It doesn't really advance either of their characters, and it feels more like a scheme designed to give our characters something to do than anything else. While things cook in the background, we'll have to wait and see what the rest of this season has in store for us. We have reached a point in the series where the scenes between Manfredi and Dunmire have become repetitive and predictable. The two of them seem to always be competing over who has the largest ego and who can make the most dangerous threats. Inevitably, they act on their threats, but other people tend to get hurt in the process. Tulsa King Season 3 Episode 7, Art of War, does provide a change of pace toward the end. It seems Manfredi might have finally gotten the upper hand by getting the Attorney General in his pocket. Even though the AG gets hurt in the process, his end goal comes to fruition, pushing Dunmire to his limit. The truth is that, while Dwight does everything in his power to beat Dunmire, it is the AG's words that push him over the edge. By claiming that Manfredi has a code that Dunmire lacks, he pushes Dunmire's buttons, and he acts out. Therefore, Dunmire ends up in jail. While this seems like a win, it will unavoidably lead to a counterattack that might bring Manfredi down. It seems Manfredi isn't the only one getting tired of Dunmire's threats and empty words. Cole's frustration continues to grow as his father voices his disappointment time and time again. While Manfredi seems too busy trying to find ways to beat Dunmire, the answer might be staring right at him. Spencer is the only one who can get Cole to open up. Even though she is mad at him for his actions, he talks to her about how he feels regarding his father. He goes as far as to say he likes her and feels like everything is okay around her. It might be that down the line, Spencer becomes the key to getting Cole on their side. For now, Tyson and Goody seem to have noticed Spencer's potential and use her knowledge of the college kids to score drugs to sell. That's when Spencer proves she's not being used as a pretty girl. On the contrary, she knows what the students want, knows where the drugs are, and knows how to get paid for her intel and her work. Just like Spencer, Margaret has been the woman to watch on Tulsa King. All throughout the season, she has been the secret weapon that has led Manfredi to victory more than once. She has been the one to position Cal Thresher as the next governor of the state. Her contacts have given both men an advantage in their business, being the mastermind behind the scenes. Even though Manfredi doesn't see it that way, without Margaret's intel on the AG, they would have never been able to lure him into the casino and play him the way they did. Even then, Manfredi wants to claim that Margaret is a pretty obvious woman. That is where his ego wins and blinds him. Dunmire, he asks in surprise after Dwight tells him. The bourbon maker. Then he quotes a price of $500,000, with half paid before the work gets started. Irked, Dwight goes into the bar's backroom and pulls the bills from a safe, delivering them to Deacon in a satchel. "You're not a Fed, are ya?" Deacon asks right before he leaves, then says he was just joking. Either way, Dwight is not amused. First off, a super quick recap of Episode 5, On the Rocks, because it sets up everything for Episode 6. Dwight Manfredi and his crew are finally launching their Montague distillery with that stolen, recovered, 50-year-old bourbon called the 50. The party's buzzing. Bohdi and Grace nailed the PR, Bigfoot's showing off his ice sculpting skills, earning him the nickname Yeti, and even Margaret's there with Cal Thresher in tow. But of course, nothing goes smooth in Tulsa. Jeremiah Dunmire pulls a total power move by leaning on the Attorney General to send a corrupt inspector to shut things down. The inspector gets squished under falling barrels in a freak accident, thanks to Bigfoot's clumsiness, and now the crew's got a body to deal with. Dwight tells them to stage it as an accident for Bohdi to discover in the morning. Meanwhile, Dwight's secretly picking up a bomb from the watchmaker, aka Deacon, the explosives expert, to hit back at Jeremiah for burning down his wind farm earlier in the season. Then, the party crashes hard when Jeremiah shows up with his posse, the AG, and some sheriffs. They destroy a barrel of the precious bourbon, brag about ruining Dwight's rep, and walk out like they own the place. Tensions peak when Bill Bevilacqua confronts Dwight about shady dealings and suspicions of betrayal. Dwight pulls a gun on him, but Bill calls his bluff and leaves, only to get swarmed and arrested by federal agents at a stoplight. Boom, episode ends on that cliffhanger. On screen, key images or text bullets of recap points. Now, what can we expect in episode 6? Tack. Let's break it down scene by scene, no holding back. Spoiler alert, this EP's all about loyalty tests, a brutal ambush, and Dwight facing his past in the most OG way possible. The episode builds to Dwight cornered in an abandoned oil rig, Jeremiah and Cole closing in, Musso's feds circling like vultures. Dwight's bleeding out, flashing back to his prison days with Pops, the OG reference. He calls in a favor from an unlikely ally, Bill Brewer, who hates Jeremiah more. Boom, a hail of gunfire from Brewer's boys turns the tide. But the real gut punch? Tina walks in on Dwight mid-deal, gun in hand, and whispers, "It's over." Does she pull the trigger? Trailer cuts to black on her finger trembling. She doesn't shoot, it's a fake-out to force Dwight legit. But Cole escapes, setting up episode 4's manhunt. This ending screams, family first, forcing the general to evolve or die. Jeremiah made it clear in the premiere that he was going to be an obstacle, burning down Theo's country manse, with him in it, as revenge for selling his distillery to Dwight. And in the true manner of someone used to having things their way, Jeremiah isn't subtle about who was to blame. His goons brag about it in public. He and Cole show up at Theo's funeral. The whole thing's a theatrical message to Dwight, a way to compel him to take the money, 3 times what he paid, that Jeremiah is offering for the distillery. But Dwight doesn't take kindly to threats, and he's no fool either. If Jeremiah is offering that much for a distillery that hasn't turned a profit in years, there has to be a reason. The clues in the title, the 50. Cleo reveals that Theo was sitting on a batch of 5-decade-old vintage bourbon that can fill 250 bottles at thousands of dollars a pop. Jeremiah knew it existed, but not where. It's the profit payload that Dwight needs to justify the risks associated with the booze business, and it's a compelling enough fortune to sway Bill to get in on the action to help with distribution. Even Cal Thresher, now a gubernatorial candidate, is reluctantly in Dwight's pocket, there to smooth over any complications with a few political favors should the need arise. That it feels like a win, but is it really? Tulsa King Season 3, Episode 2 reintroduces all of these key players but makes it very clear that they can't be relied upon. Bill is still on conspiratorial terms with Vince back in New York, whose takeover of the Invernizzi family seems to have backfired, and Cal would just as soon have Dwight killed as work with him. And everyone seems to know that Jeremiah means business. He's a credible threat, and he has no shortage of targets he can lean on to hurt Dwight. He sends Cole and some goons after Mitch, and while that ambush backfires, it proves he's willing to take action. Cole also seems to target Spencer at the end of the episode, who may prove a weak link. Then there's Bohdi, whose lust for revenge is preventing him from making peace with Bill's men, and Tyson's father, Mark, whose reluctant agreement to fix the distillery's pipes might count as collusion as far as someone like Jeremiah is concerned. What I'm curious about, at least for now, is how all these major players and conflicting allegiances can all fit together into a coherent season. The only real downside of the 50 is that it all unfolds at such a clip that it can feel as if individual moments don't have much space to breathe. This is fine when it comes to, say, Tyson's relationship with Mark, since that has been ebbing and flowing since the very first season, but Mitch and Cleo, by comparison, feels a bit more forced. There's also a subplot involving Goody trying, hilariously, it must be said, to track down Armand, but one has to wonder whether we need yet another angle to be concerned about. Time will tell. If I had to make a prediction, I'd say that several main characters probably won't survive this season, and it wouldn't surprise me if at least one was killed off sooner rather than later to really set the stakes. Theo's death was tragic, but we just met him. If Jeremiah's whole thing is hitting close to home, everyone in Dwight's inner circle should be worried, and the vibe this season is giving off thus far is that it won't be pulling any punches. Flashback montage shows Mitch's subtle leaks to Dunmire for a cut of the action, driven by resentment over Jimmy's death and feeling sidelined. Dunmire monologues about old money versus your street scraps, then signals Russell to rough up Dwight. Dwight fights back ferociously, flips a table, cracks a bottle over a goon's head, but gets outnumbered. He escapes barely, bloodied, stealing a ledger proving Mitch's betrayal. Back at HQ, confrontation time, Mitch confesses, tearful, "You promised us the world, Dwight." Dunmire offered security. Dwight doesn't kill him, yet, cold mercy, "You're out. But if you breathe a word." Cue Mitch's exile, staring at the crew like a ghost.